Hi everyone. This is just a brief presentation on how to read a research paper and get at what the paper's just trying to say. Okay, that's really how to look at these things, because they can be I don't know, they can look challenging because they'll talk about a lot of things maybe that you haven't heard of. But if you know what to expect, then you know what you have to pay attention to and what you cannot worry about. Okay? So what I'll do in this presentation is go through a list, like an outline of how to look at these things, and then we'll compare it over here to this paper on the methodology for the sport industry. I like this paper. I think it's a really interesting application. So let's before we get to the content of the paper, the first thing I always look at is, of course, the journal name. Okay, the Journal of Emerging Technologies in Accounting. This is actually, I think this is really one of the best journals from the American Accounting Association. Excuse me. And then we go over here, and that's the American Accounting Association. That's whose paper it is. That is the best source for all of your accounting journals. Okay, I'll show you sometime in class, but like I'm a member of the American Accounting Association. It's the academic wing, and they have serious journals that are produced for all of the major areas of research in accounting. Okay, so we know it's a good paper, and we can see it's from 2021. That's the other thing I look at. Then I look down here to see if okay, they had some support, some financial support, but then what else? It doesn't look like they presented it any place. But they submitted it in June, and it was accepted the following January. That's pretty fast. Or published the following January, accepted in January, and published. Yeah, so that's pretty quick. But we start out with, of course, the title. All right, and so this should have some expectations in your head. How did they capture public perceptions and response during COVID? Okay, and we're looking specifically at the sports industry. So the next thing you would look at really carefully is the abstract. So I always make sure that I'm awake and I'm paying attention here, and then try to reduce this to one sentence. Okay, what are they doing? Okay, the pandemic has had an unprecedented impact, yada yada yada, wreaked havoc on the sports calendar, using machine learning approaches in order to extract hidden patterns and tweets could assist practitioners in creating and implementing crisis communication strategies for mitigating the impact of COVID. So it sounds to me like they used Twitter to figure out what was happening in the industry. Okay, so and the other thing that this is pointing out is a new application, like a way of taking data from Twitter and analyzing it, and then using it for research. Okay, that's new too. So that's the first piece, summary of questions and main findings. They don't have main findings in here, but it's a nice tight abstract. It doesn't wander all over the place, and you've got a good idea about what the paper is talking about. Okay, then the next is the introduction, and I think this is probably one of the most important pieces, because it tells us what we know. It tells us, us what we know. Okay, and like if you ever went to the School of Accountancy and listened to presentations being given among the faculty, people will sit back and they'll say to themselves, or they'll say to the group, okay, well, what do we know about this? In other words, what has prior research shown us? Okay, where are we with this topic? Okay, so the introduction, it gives an introduction to the sports industry. Existing literature on crisis management suggests that it's shaping perception and coordinating with stakeholders to prevent, solve, and grow from a crisis. Okay? Sorry, I've got a pretty bad cough here, just so you know. All right, so they do whatever's been there on crisis management, and it looks like all pretty current stuff. Like maybe the beginning of the literature starts in 2017. Okay. What was this? Oh, this is 2011. Okay, so that would be 2011, 2012. There's not really a lot of prior literature in the area. And, crisis management would be sort of a 20th century topic. Okay, so we don't even have anything in here from the 90s. And typically it takes a pretty long time, okay, for ideas to develop, and it'll start in academia and then eventually move out to industry. Okay, now here's the literature review, and the lit review shows us this could be maybe 3 pages long. Okay, but it isn't in here. This whole paper is only 7 pages long, so it's really not that long. So that's interesting. So, but it's good, you know. It doesn't have to be super lengthy to be good. This could be really effective. So this is all the literature that's been done on there, and this is a description of what we know. Okay, this is what the literature has shown us so far, and then they give us the proposed methodology and proof of concept. So pictures are always good for this. And here we've got the sports industry and the public, and we've got a variable coming in here. We've got COVID-19. Okay, so then we look at social media posts. They looked at social media posts, and they looked at the sentiment of whether or not they were similar and what the topics were. Okay, all right. That's the proposed methodology, and these were the outcomes to capture public perceptions. Okay, so we've got an idea about what that is. You don't have to go crazy understanding all the methodology, okay? I would look at it in particular for the size of the sample. Okay, so they had a total of, well, there's 10,000 tweets afterwards, so that's quite a few. And there are sentiment changes over time. It looks like they're talking about the results here. Or maybe this is proposed. I think this might be a proposed or descriptive statistics, this piece right here. Okay, there's a little bit here on the data, all right, and then descriptive statistics, and there's a conclusion just like that. So we have, it's kind of nice. Okay, so this is the model development here, okay, and then there should be it doesn't have to be really long, but there should be a pretty accurate description of what the sample was, where it came from. And the reason you're interested in that is you want to decide whether or not that sample is valid. Okay, the real question with this study is, does an analysis of tweets really tell you what the perceptions and responses are in the sports industry of COVID? Now, you might want to think, like, do people who are interested in sports, do they use Twitter? Okay, are they there? So that's one of the things you'd want to think about. And they give us their, let's see, sentiment changes. You'd really want to read it, but that was aggregated before, after, collegial before, after, professional. Okay, before and then after. And then they'll have a conclusion, what they got out of this study. All right, it proposes a methodology that combines 3 machine learning techniques. So they use machine learning, you know, to analyze the Twitter accounts. And what did they say at the end? Here we look at the last statement here. The use of social media as a tool for measuring stakeholders' perceptions with important implications for firms has been largely ignored. Using the sports industry as example, the study opens up future research opportunities in accounting studies and addresses the strategic needs highlighted by the accounting professionals. So you'll usually have a suggestion for future research. The other thing they usually have in studies is a statement like, what limitations do they see in the study? Because nothing's ever perfect. Okay, so if we looked, this is Journal of Emerging Technologies is probably the newest journal for AAA. I think it might be. And this was a pretty recent article here. So let's just go back and think. We've got an abstract, an introduction that captures the past, what we know from prior research. Then, well, what did we look at and how are we going to do it? Usually there are descriptive statistics that describe the sample, and it's just some of the initial results. I usually look at this pretty well to look how, I don't know, there's good information in here. We'll have to look at it different. Well, we'll look at it through the semester. And then how they develop their model, what the results are, and then a discussion. Okay, so if you do, let's say, a single-page summary, or at most 2 pages of a paper, you want to break it down into these sections and just put it in your own words so you can say it. And if you do this, then you're going to be in really good shape for the quizzes too. Okay? All right.